For Sunday, March 20th, you found the Georgia gang. And topping our agenda today, the General Assembly passes that Religious Freedom Act. There's a compromise in the works over MARTA money, and trumped is the word for Republicans. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
Good morning. We're glad you could be with us on this officially the first day of spring, though it's a little bit cooler than the weather we've been having. At any rate, my thanks to Phil Kent for sitting in for me the last couple of weeks. Appreciated that, Phil.
You're welcome.
And one of the things about being home, you get to actually study stuff without interruption. And finally, the General Assembly, after 2 years, has passed that religious freedom bill. And I suggest that maybe we don't debate it. Maybe we just discuss what's in it, because I've made an effort to find out. I'm sure you have. And it goes to Governor Deal. I don't see a single thing wrong with it. It models the federal statute. It says that pastors cannot be forced into homosexual weddings. Some other stuff like that. Alexis, what's your beef?
Well, I think it also suggests that you can fire someone if they don't adhere to your religious beliefs, and you don't have to serve someone if they don't adhere to your religious beliefs. And I think therein lies the problem. They did insert a paragraph that says they have to obey non-discrimination laws in the state and federal level, but there aren't any state discrimination laws.
The federal law does not protect homosexuals. Let me throw a hypothetical at you. You're running a Catholic grammar school. You've got a teacher who's professed to be a Catholic. All of a sudden, she comes out as a cross-dresser. What do?
Tell her to keep doing what she's doing, keep teaching.
Really?
Even
though it's totally antithetical to the values of your church.
Well, how did she get hired in the first place? What is the harm that's being done?
Well, she was dressing as a woman.
And she's not a woman.
No, she decided she wants to be a man for a day.
This is a ridiculous
This is the slippery slope of all this stuff.
Well, and that's why it's discriminatory, too. Right. I mean, why should she be punished for her sexual orientation? Or
if she stays the person she was when she was hired, she's fine. When she switches or he switches, she's fired, he's fired. That's easy.
I don't think
Darren,
that's
you disagree with that?
But you know, and I'm totally in agreement with Alexis. But the problem with this bill is exactly what we just witnessed. You can't articulate what its real intent, because basically, as we know, the freedom of religion is already basically a fundamental American value that is covered already by the U.S. Constitution, correct? Yeah. First Amendment and the U.S. Constitution and Georgia Constitution. The problem with this legislation is that it gives the opportunity for organizations and businesses to discriminate, and it also basically allows them to kind of get away with it. The problem with this legislation is that there has not been a clear articulated vision for why do we need this in Georgia right now when we already have statutes in our U.S. Constitution, in our Georgia Constitution. The other problem with this bill is that you now have combined the first two RFRA bills, and then you've added the FATA bill on there as well. And I'm telling you, it puts the governor in a very, very tough bind.
I agree.
Because he came out last week and said that the current RFRA bill in its current language will not be something that he would support. And at a time when I'm hearing that businesses are thinking about pulling out of this state, not bringing their conferences here, it puts them in a really, really tough position. And you got to applaud Mayor Reed, who came out with a very, very strong statement against 757. So again, I think that while at a time where Republicans are trying to push this bill forward for whatever reason, again, until you can eliminate the discriminatory language that's in the bill that allows an organization or anybody to discriminate on anyone in the state, I just don't see how the governor.
So let me just address a couple points here, Dick. First of all, other states have had these statutes. It is balanced. This is an effort to try to address the governor's concerns. Alexis is right.
It's federal law.
There's no discrimination. It doesn't want to go against any federal laws or state laws. And you know, there are problems here. If you've missed it in the news, there are Christians who are being attacked for their sincere beliefs.
Attacked in what way?
Well, the famous case of the baker that was forced to do a cake for a same-sex marriage. This is a trend, and the hard gay left is very vocal here. You know this.
You know what the problem
but
is?
just to finish,
This
my
is
point.
2% trying to control 98%.
I think that
And
it's good to
thank
have
God
a Pastor
for the rights of
Protection
the
Act.
minority.
It's good to have a Pastor Protection Act that was folded in here. And to your point, you know, on people who are holding sincere religious beliefs have to be protected. It is a fine balance there, and I grant you.
Okay,
I think
but here's the thing: the problem with the tactics, and you guys, I think, will agree with this. It was an attempt last session, and it was unsuccessful. Let's just talk about how this bill got passed. The Republican caucus basically went into a room for about an hour, and they brought forth this bill in a very hasty manner. Basically, they went in, they said, you know what, because no one thought that RFRA was going to even come up. And no one was really talking about it because the governor stood up and basically said, you know what, I don't want any type of discriminatory language in any bill to come to my desk. So the problem, but here's the problem. But here's the problem with this issue, Phil, is that it's the perception of it. You can change the wording all you want to, and quite, you know, you're hearing both sides. Some people saying this is a watered down version. Some people actually say that it gives these organizations more opportunities to discriminate. But the problem that the Republican Party have right now is the perception of it. It's how it's always done, and they just basically bring it up at a time where they have all this control, and they vote on it. And the governor has already said that he did not want to basically deal with this during the session.
This has been going on for 3 years. We've been discussing it here on the show for 3 years. And it's been changed, it's evolved. And by the way, I have to laugh, for 30 some years that I've covered the legislature under Tom Murphy, the heavy-handed Democrat speaker, a lot of stuff was done in secret.
But they don't make it right, though, Phil.
No, it doesn't make it right.
And Tom Murphy, may he rest in peace.
This is a far more transparent legislature.
But if you're going to deal with this issue, and we're all very intellectuals who are basically giving the people what we got going on and leaving personal opinion to the side, the perception of this issue and how it's going to hurt business in our state at a time where we saw what happened in Indiana, and I know that the governor and others.
This is not the Indiana law, so that's unfair to it's been changed. The Indiana law, in my opinion, was a bad law. This has been changed.
But it's still a bad law because it's an unnecessary law.
Well, you're never going to like any law.
Not about this, not about religious freedom, because we already have it addressed, as Theron has already pointed out.
What bothers me, how many times have I said this on the broadcast? This simply mirrors the federal statute passed into law in 1993 under President Bill Clinton.
Well, but it
so
does.
What's the harm?
It does.
What did you say? 20 other states have this.
Right. That's right.
And 20 other states don't have what Georgia has in terms of tourism and business and industry locating here. And that's the problem that we are going to be faced with.
Now, another major bill that came through the General Assembly this past week was new protections for teachers. Their evaluations will be based less on standardized tests. I think down from 50% to 30%, perhaps. Am I right on those numbers? Teachers seem to like it. Since we're cutting back on testing anyway, I see no problem. You ever see a problem?
I think we might all agree on this one.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that has been the problem that started with the federal legislation, No Child Left Behind, that puts so much emphasis on testing that
there was a lot of pressure on teachers, and that takes a little bit of the pressure off on the teacher evaluations, and it's less testing.
Speaking of giveaways, here's a beauty. No sales tax on Super Bowl tickets. Like the people who can afford to buy Super Bowl tickets can't afford to pay the sales tax? Really?
But here's my thing. At a time when we want to attract the Super Bowl, right, and as you call it, the Arthur Dome that we're building, and we want to build this new phenomenal stadium to support our Falcons and give our fans, why are we debating RFRA? Because do you think that the NFL and the Super Bowl committee and everyone who selects the site want to go to a state that has this type of language in this
I don't know. A Falcons coach asked a player if he liked boys.
Well, that's a whole different situation. My point is, it goes back to our original point, is that we are a great state that like to do a lot of business. But listen, I think it was a very spirited debate about the Super Bowl tax in the legislature. And I think the Democrats and Republicans had some good points. But ultimately, I think it was the right thing.
You know, Chick-fil-A and a lot of companies don't agree with there's division in the business community. It has not hurt us and other states at all. I think it's fanned by the left wing, frankly.
So you don't support the business community?
I do support.
I thought you were pro-business. You run a business.
Everyone knows I support and they have a right to their opinion. Everybody knows I support.
We got to get out. Alexis, make a quick point.
There's always subsidies for business, but business brings more money for everybody. everybody. So there's,
Right.
And there's a double-edged sword. If I would tell business, you got to be careful. Christians can boycott too, along with the left.
Christians
What?
don't. They're gentlemen and gentle ladies.
I don't know.
They don't get down to the gutter with
They may be righteous indignation.
Peaceful
other
protesting,
groups.
nonviolent
All right, when we
protesting.
come back, we're going to put our wonk hats on and try to explain to you why Kasim Reed was so right about MARTA legislation in the General Assembly. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
A few weeks ago, we and others pronounced that bills to enable a sales tax for MARTA were sort of dead on arrival. But the very crafty Kasim Reed, the mayor of Atlanta, said at the time, no, this bill could rise from the dead like Lazarus. Was he ever right? And Theron, I turn to you because Kasim Reed and his people appear to have put together a compromise with Jan Jones, the number 2 person in the state house, to allow the city to add a half-cent MARTA tax by referendum, and the rest of the county, north and south, to add a 0.75 cent tax by referendum. Did I say all that right? It's very
You did.
complicated.
And I think, listen, the mayor definitely deserves credit for at a time where people were saying that any expansion or any transit dealing around MARTA was dead. But also, you got to give, and there's 2 people I want to recognize that have really been working hard. One being Jan Jones, because she introduced the bill, and also the person who really carried this message all through the session was Senator Brandon Beach. But the other group that hasn't really been talked a lot about is that there's a group of Fulton County mayors who we've talked about on the show that have been meeting for a long time, and Chairman John Eaves has been in that meeting as well. So I think what you see here is that it's a willingness for legislators to say, listen, if we have an opportunity to do something about transit in this state, we should do it. And the one thing we should point out about this bill is that it also gives, I think, the city of Atlanta a second option of how much they would want to do specifically around roads and buses and bridges as well.
North and South Fulton, a second option.
Correct.
To take that quarter cent and put it toward MARTA.
Yeah.
This is a pure compromise
I
with the
think it
mayors
is.
of North Fulton.
I think it is, and Theron's right. The mayors have done a lot of work in this area. And actually, this is the way the legislature should work. They should be vetting this and should be debating
Well, you've got
it.
serious
Anything
legislation.
can happen, though. We have 2, I think we should point out to viewers, we've got 2 more legislative days left. And Tuesday and Thursday, and so anything can happen.
Well, a couple of things here that are significant. DeKalb County is not in this.
Right.
Clayton County is not in this.
Right.
I don't know what they do about Atlanta and DeKalb.
That's not totally true because
For now.
for now. But if the bill passes in its current form, it will have money set aside, an option for the I-20 corridor, particularly the Clifton corridor area as well. And so DeKalb also has got to be at the table, and I think you're going to see some more discussion around.
Now, Atlanta's
this bill.
share of that that half-cent additional sales tax, if voters approved, the share would be $2.5 billion.
Right.
My question was, what would the mayor do with it? And I started making jokes to some of you about, well, we could extend the streetcar. But in a great interview with J. Scott Truby, the mayor laid it out. He wants above the street light rail with connectivity to the Beltway. Now, that's just a broad vision, but it's something I'd like to look at. You agree?
Right.
And light rail is far cheaper than heavy rail.
Yeah, but do you like looking at it? I sure do.
You should look at everything.
I think that's
Not gondolas.
No.
That's Sandy Springs. And they're off the charts.
No, but I do think that is a great idea, and as Theron also pointed out, also looking at roads and bridges that definitely need some repair.
But I'm going to agree with Phil. I mean, we got to give MARTA staff and Keith Parker a lot of credit. I mean, every session we're talking about MARTA, right? And I was with Andy Young this week, and he told me the story about how Sam Massell back in the 80s when MARTA was created.
70s.
In the 70s, I'm sorry, where he rode around in a helicopter with a bullhorn saying, if you want to be out of traffic, if you don't want to be stuck in traffic, vote for MARTA. And here we are, 30, 40 years later, and we're still trying to expand MARTA. And so I think we're getting there, and I think the public should really weigh in on this subject and encourage their legislators to do the right thing.
And Keith Parker, as we pointed out before, has really forged a bipartisan consensus and has done a lot for enhancing the reputation of the whole agency.
I will give you Brandon Beach just to a degree. He started the debate, he pushed it, he lost, but he won. Because now, because of Kasim, you've got the city going its own direction. Now you've got North Fulton and South Fulton able to make their decisions going
I
forward.
wouldn't declare victory yet because, as you well know more than most, anything can happen before Thursday. Things get almost rise from the dead and then die very quickly.
That is true. That is true.
All right, let's turn to some other legislation. There's so much of it. I'm, of course, the chief advocate of new cities. The city of Stonehaven has passed the State House. That's good. They also adjusted the salaries. They had proposed to pay their mayor 75 grand. Really? One of the other new cities pay 20 grand? Government is not a jobs program. Anyway, it's been cut.
I believe it's
Stonecrest has a chance.
Stonecrest.
Greenhaven has no chance of becoming a city.
Right.
Stonecrest does. I think that's interesting. Phil, city of South Fulton, is there a base for that?
Well, yes, there is, but again, we don't know if that's going to live or die by Thursday. And then there's this debate over down in Glynn County in the south part of the state. Do they want cityhood down there?
For St. Simon's?
Yeah.
But pay attention to this South Fulton bill.
So I don't know anything about it.
Well, Roger Bruce basically, I think on a technical, he brought up a very technical sort of procedure that wasn't followed and was able to kind of revive that bill. But it goes to the Senate, and I think you're going to probably see some opposition that comes against this bill in the Senate.
But the people of that area voted against cityhood at one point, did they not?
I think they did.
Or they voted against
They
annexation?
voted against annexation.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it isn't clear what they really want, is my point.
Right.
All right, and DeKalb, Fran Miller, the state senator from DeKalb, has got a bill that's passed the Senate to do away with the chief executive officer position in the county, which means that if Michael Thurman, for example, were elected DeKalb CEO this year, he would serve one 4-year term and sayonara, and it would revert to a chairmanship. This would subsume a House bill by Scott Holcomb, the Democrat.
Right.
What do you think of the chances, Phil?
Right. Again, you don't know what's going to happen before Thursday. I'd love to see personally Michael Thurman take over as CEO, and maybe there could be 4 years of reform before it reverts back. I've always agreed with Alexis. I like a weaker chairman type thing and a professional county executive.
But also, let's just dig a little deeper in this. So you also had a charter commission bill that was passed.
Stupid. Do you know how many there have been?
No, because what this charter commission bill does is that it takes a look at the entire form of government in DeKalb, which is really what
We've
needs to
done it about 3 times.
No, but this will, and then also with Fran Miller's bill, it was able to move forward because they took out the maps. I mean, let's be fully disclosed. He had a bill initially that was basically making 3 black Democrats run against one another. But
good idea. Did you see the Democrat maps?
But I would say this though, Dick.
It looked like the reptile house
I think
at
that
the
you
zoo.
got to also look at Holcomb's bill. You come back fired up this week. You got to also look at Holcomb's bill again. That actually, I think his bill was 4 years, and actually Fran Miller, I think, bill is 2 years. And so ultimately,
I think you're right.
Yeah. So I think the delegation is going in. Senator Gloria Butler's been very vocal on this issue, also with Howard Mosby. And so I think at the time where DeKalb County is moving in the right direction, Lee May is doing a good job. He's moving forward. And at a time, listen, there's going to be a new day in DeKalb. You're going to have an election. You're going to have a new CEO. Likely that person will be Michael Thurman. So
Lee May is doing a good job.
I'm glad.
I wish I shared it. We got to get out.
Everybody's glad he's going.
Hey, when we come back, you think we're going to Trump? No. We're going to a big, wet, sloppy kiss in Clayton County for Victor Hill. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And don't forget to find us on Facebook. And remember now, we have our own YouTube channel. There's no excuse for not keeping up with us. We're there on YouTube. A quick kiss toward Clayton County. The woman who was shot in an incident with Sheriff Victor Hill at a display house in Gwinnett County a year ago has endorsed the sheriff for re-election. Put out a robocall to that effect. You can't make it up, can you?
She also works for the Clayton County Sheriff's Office, too.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
that's
that.
A good income there. Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about qualifying this year.
Hold on, we can't let that go. Listen, we again, and Lexus and I talked about this unfortunate event that happened. It was an accident. And I think Victor Hill, again, came out and showed a tremendous amount of remorse. And for her to make the decision that she wants to support someone who she's friends with.
Employed by.
Well, I mean, that has nothing to do with her wanting to extend her support for who she thinks the best choice to lead that county. And so I think we just let's not be a little insensitive. It was a woman shot, and I think
It was an accident.
It was an
He's
accident.
never explained to this day what he was doing there. And
I'm
doing,
just
quote,
just
police
happy.
training,
I just hope that
unquote.
she's going through a speedy recovery.
It's a reality show. And it'll begin with her endorsement.
All right.
Flashback to the shooting. I can see it now. All right. In terms of qualifying, I know you were in a hurry last week, and qualifying had just closed. I want to point out the interesting case of Stan Watson, the DeKalb County Commissioner, who qualified to become the tax commissioner against an interim fella and another woman. And the idea of all the financial trouble that Stan Watson has been in and accused of, the idea that he would be our tax collector sends, shall we say, a shiver up my spine.
Which, not just your spine, everybody in DeKalb County. I mean, the man is a walking, ethically challenged, disgrace to public office. Good grief.
Let's not go that hard.
Oh, did you want me to list all of the things that he's done in abusing public money there? And even you can't defend
Yeah,
him.
he hadn't been convicted of anything. He hadn't been even.
No, that's the whole point.
No, but I tell you what, I just look at the record, and I can't imagine people supporting him to be tax commissioner with his record.
To make this about
Abuse
him,
of public money.
to make this a first of all, it's a civil suit. So it's civil.
So what?
And for him to decide that he wants to run for tax commissioner and resign from his seat, we should be talking about now the county. It puts the county in a position where they're back to a 3-3 vote now. And at a time, again, where you don't want to give Lee May credit and the DeKalb County Commission credit for doing great things for the citizens of DeKalb, to me that was the bigger
He
challenge
blocked
for
a
the county.
corruption
I
investigation.
want to move on real quickly.
You forget that. Lee May blocked a corruption investigation. He was afraid.
When Stan Watson resigned, his paycheck stopped. His paycheck was being garnished because of an incident in a DeKalb saloon. So where does the plaintiff go to get the money now that Stan Watson has no paycheck? Just an interesting, typical question that arises in the daily lives of DeKalb citizens. Now let's turn to perfidy, treachery, and things like that. Pure Shakespearean treachery. Phil, Sandy Springs. Joe Wilkinson, longstanding state representative, father of the city, challenged by the mayor and his lackey. How would you write that plot?
I tell you what, it's a political soap opera. There's no question, and there are lies, deception, and betrayal here. Just very quickly, he is the father of Sandy Springs.
Joe Wilkinson,
he carried, Joe Wilkinson, the representative, carried the legislation 10, 11 years ago. One of the Sandy Springs councilmen, Graham McDonald, told him Wednesday that I will support you. And on Friday, he and the mayor of Sandy Springs come in at the last minute and qualify against him.
Ouch.
And then a third candidate, who's actually a very nice person, Deborah Silcox, was worried that Joe Wilkinson might not run, so she got in to block this McDonald. And so it's a three-way race. In fact, just very quickly, Opinion Savvy did a poll of Joe Wilkinson. And I think
really?
Yes, and it just came out this Thursday. 51% approval rating for Joe Wilkinson, and if the election were held today, he would win by 7 points. So that ought to give pause to the folks who are doing the perfidy.
All right, we got to get out. Rusty Paul used to be a reformist. He was a great reformist, a boy councilman in the city of Stone Mountain. He went off to Washington with Jack Kemp and did great work there on opportunity and all those sorts of things that true conservatives believe in. Now that he's the mayor of Sandy Springs, he's calling for gondolas. And what are those trains that go through Disney? And he thinks he's kidding. He's not. The power has gone to his head. All right, no more Trump, no more Hillary. Just have to stay tuned to Chris Wallace. He'll give that all to you. We'll be back with winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And I'll turn right now to Theron.
Well, my first winner is going to be a young man who I met at the Capitol by the name of George Lester. I want to recognize him. He was from Floyd Middle School in Cobb County, along with some of his classmates. They were pages at the Capitol, and he came up to me and basically says that along with his parents, they watch the show every Sunday. So I want to shout out George. My second winner is going to be Representative Jan Jones. I mean, she deserves a lot of credit for keeping the MARTA and transit discussion open. I mean, she put forth this bill. She's been working along with Brandon Beach speech, so I want to make her my winner. And I know we didn't really get to Trump today, but Trump is definitely the loser. I mean, again, this guy is not repudiating what happened in Chicago. He is not coming out and taking a stand and telling his supporters that we cannot have the type of...
He didn't start it. Communists started it. That's the case. Alexis, you go.
What? Okay. Okay, so just for that, Dick,
And by the way, I hope they continue so the nation can see what the Democratic Party is. Go ahead, Alexis.
You're wrong for that, Dick.
Well, we'll see what the Republican Party is, too, as they continue to support Trump. I want to make the National Black Arts Festival my winner. They had the annual Fine Art and Fashion event. That was a big success and wonderful fundraiser for them. And also remember Ralph Abernathy III passed this week. He'd suffered from cancer. And, you know, he was the son of the civil rights icon Ralph David Abernathy Jr., lieutenant for Martin Luther King Jr. in the civil rights movement. So we're sorry for his loss.
Phil?
You know, Bernie Marcus is my winner this week. You may have seen where he donated his foundation $75 million to Piedmont Healthcare to expand their cardiac services. That's the second largest donation in the United States. And you know, my loser is over in Greene County. Did you see the story of that teacher? His name is Corey Hunter. He singled out a girl in class and said, "You must be the dumbest girl in class." Just totally irresponsible. The girl got bullied.
There's a lot of that going on.
And he was fired, and rightly so. And that should be a message. Teachers got to be very careful.
All right, we have to get out. Spring training is underway. I know wins don't mean much down there. When the Braves have won 4 games through Friday, 4? Really? 4th among the 4 worst teams in baseball? How about some wins just to give the fans some hope? We'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.